Hi. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Virtual Excel Academy.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are. We are with you too, and we're excited that you're with us today. If you are joining us for the first time, let us know who you are, where you are from, and what's going on in your side of the world. And anyone else who is joining us today, we always love to hear from you in the chat window. So tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you're up to these days. Our hostesses for the day, Charlotte Cushman. Hello, Charlotte, from Paths to Literacy, Texas, and Perkins School for the Blind.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Leanne Grillat, from the Director of National Outreach Services from American Printing House for the Blind.
Welcome, everyone.
And I am Cheryl Kamei-Hannon. I am a professor from Cal State University, Los Angeles. Welcome to our session today. We are with Kate Katulak, who is going to tell us about apps. So if you have a phone, or if you have a tablet or an iPad, please go and grab it because we're going to be talking about that today. In the meantime, let's say hello to our friends who are joining us today. Julie, welcome from Nebraska. Rita, welcome from Georgia. Kian, we're so glad to have you back. Paul, welcome from Brooklyn, New York. And Brenda from, Lebanon, Tennessee. Andrew from New Jersey. Amanda from British Columbia, welcome. Bill from Florida, welcome. Yadrya from San Diego. And Nuala from North Carolina. Hello, everybody. We are so glad to have you. And we have our friend back from Russia. If you get a moment, I would love to hear how you pronounce that name again. It is written in Russian font, and I'm not familiar with that. So if you get a chance, I would love to hear who you are again from Vyazvolod. I'm probably not saying that right. Jennifer, welcome from New York. Thank you so much. And Kate, shall we see how you're doing today?
Yeah, that sounds great. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to hear that so many of you have joined us. And I'm going to be talking about some apps that I love today. So again, my name is Kate Katulak, and I'm a teacher of students with visual impairments, and I happen to be blind myself. Some of you may have tuned in to some of my other sessions. I did a unit on staying home, where we talked about how to thrive in our home environments given social distancing. But today, I'm going to be talking about something very different, apps. But the good thing about apps are they're also something that we can do while we're all staying at home. So in a way, even today's topic relates. So I just want to ask the moderators quickly if my video is on. We've been playing around with some technical things.
Your video is on, and I've turned off the chat so that you are allowed to use your information that you need.
That is wonderful. So for those of you who might be thinking, what in the world are they talking about? Things are a little bit different for me as a presenter because I'm blind and a user of JAWS screen reader. When I'm tuning in to a webinar and I'm presenting, I am using an AirPod or an earpiece connected to my phone. So the microphone on my AirPod is picking up my voice. But in order for you all to be able to see me, I'm using the camera on my computer. And also coming through the speakers of my computer are JAWS reading things to me. So it gets a little bit tricky so that I'm able to hear my outline for today's lesson via JAWS. And I also want to be able to hear comments that come from you in the chat box. But you can really help me out by just understanding that we're going to turn the chat box off sometimes so that I can listen to my outline with JAWS. And other times we'll turn the chat feature on so that you can type your questions and your comments, and I'll be able to listen to those with JAWS as well. Sometimes I might miss something that you type, and our wonderful moderators will fill in any gaps. So thank you for your patience, and without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. As I said, I am a user of VoiceOver, which is one of the screen readers I use on my phone and sometimes computer. And I'm also a user of JAWS, which is the screen reader for my PC. And I think that's important to mention because I was actually asked to talk about some of the apps I used during other sessions when people learned that I'm visually impaired and I'm an independent adult. I live on my own, I cook and I clean for myself, I do all the things for myself. And a lot of that comes from the freedom that applications give. So several students and teachers were asking what kind of apps I prefer to use. And so, oh, excuse me, my cat is, my cat's jumping up on the table here. He loves when I present over Zoom, and he always thinks it's a great opportunity for him to have his 5 minutes of fame. So if you see him or hear him hop up on my computer again, that's just his way of saying hi. So people asked me what apps I use, and I thought it would be such a great opportunity for me to share, not so much from my perspective as a teacher, oh my goodness, kitty, but my perspective as a user of apps and a user of a screen reader. My cat's name is Sawyer, and he is just cracking me up right now because he thinks that it would just be wonderful if he could be seen and heard by all of you. So I apologize for that distraction. So our goals for today, we are gonna learn some background on apps. Kitty. We'll
just enjoy if he walks through. We know he loves you.
I know, it's really cracking me up. One of the problems is if he walks on my keyboard, then of course it's going to interfere with what I'm able to hear. So hopefully he will learn that I don't quite want him up here right now. All right. Okay, so we are going to learn some, excuse me for just 1 second. All right. Okay, so sorry about that, everyone. These are some of the things the difficulties that come along from the social distancing and having to work from home sometimes. Okay, so back to our goals for today. And hopefully I've given all of you an opportunity to pause and maybe have some laughter, because I know that was pretty funny to me. And for those of you who can't see me, I'm completely blushing right now. All right, so back to our goals. Today we are going to identify some useful and fun applications. We're going to compare and contrast some advantages and disadvantages to a variety of apps. I am guessing that all of you have used many different apps at home, at school, and just generally for fun, for reading, for learning. We use apps for all kinds of different things. We use them all the time, but most people don't really know what they are. So think about it. What is an app? The word app is actually short for, maybe you already know, the word application. And an app or an application is a software program. Did you know that there are 3 types of apps? Most commonly, when people are referring to apps, they're talking about mobile apps. And these are for devices such as phones and tablets and even watches. So that's one type. But there are also desktop apps. That's the second type. And web apps, that's the third. So again, the 3 types of apps are mobile, desktop, and web. Desktop apps have the most features, generally speaking. This means you can usually access all of the things that an app does. And this makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Where are you typically accessing a desktop app from? A computer. And a computer typically has a large size screen, a full keyboard, and some people use a mouse or a touchpad. So because you have all of those things available to you, the big screen, the full keyboard, and the mouse, some people might believe that it is easier to navigate and easier to access all of the features. Microsoft Word is an example of a desktop app. Chances are, if you're in school or go to work, you probably have now or at one time or another used Microsoft Word on a computer. And if you haven't, I encourage you to do so because it's a wonderful tool, again, for learning and getting things done. If you open up Microsoft Word on a computer, you're opening the desktop version of Microsoft Word, the app, Microsoft Word. Also, JAWS is an example of a desktop application, as is NVDA and VoiceOver on a Mac computer. Pretty much anything you can open from the start menu or desktop on a PC computer, or anything you can open using the Finder or the dock or desktop on a Mac, those are all most likely desktop applications. Now, let's talk a little bit about web apps very briefly. Web apps are accessible only through the internet. These are accessed through web browsers like Google Chrome or Firefox. Generally speaking, these are also meant to be used with a computer, so like a big screen, a mouse, a full keyboard. So they often have a lot of features as well. Can you think of some examples of web apps? Think about it for a moment. What apps do you use through things like Google Chrome or Firefox? Some of you might even be thinking that you use Microsoft Word through the web, because Microsoft Word is an example of an app that has a desktop version and a web-based version. Some people have a subscription to Microsoft Word that they access through the internet. Other examples of web apps include Google apps. So if you've ever used Google Docs or Sheets, Slides, even Gmail, those are examples of web-based apps. So I don't know about you, but I think that website apps are incredibly useful, as are desktop apps. But let's talk about my very favorite of the three types of apps, the one that we're going to be focusing on most today. Let's talk about mobile applications or mobile apps. Mobile apps are like portable apps. They're meant to be accessed on smaller screens, such as on our phones, tablets, or sometimes even a watch. I wonder if some of you have a smartwatch. Like I love my Apple Watch. And I also happen to have an iPhone. And I use both of those tools to access mobile apps. Because mobile apps are meant to be accessed on smaller screens, they usually have fewer or less features than web-based apps or desktop apps. Sometimes and often, mobile apps are often meant to be used by swiping on a screen with just one finger. Or for those of us who use VoiceOver or another screen reader, sometimes we just do a lot of tapping on our phones. And again, because that screen is small and because we're more limited by an on-screen keyboard, many mobile apps have fewer features than the desktop apps, as well as sometimes the web apps as well. Any app that you open up on a phone or a tablet, that's a mobile application. Interestingly, some apps can be available as all three versions, as desktop apps, web apps, as well as mobile apps. So I already gave Microsoft Word as an example that has a desktop version and a web version, but Microsoft Word also has a mobile version available. You can actually download the app Microsoft Word to your phone or to your tablet. Gmail. Think about your use of Gmail, if that is the mail, the way you access mail. A lot of people have Gmail email addresses, or they have some experience accessing Gmail or even sending emails to users of Gmail. Gmail is an example of an app that has a couple different versions. I want you to think about which types you've heard of. Have you ever accessed Gmail from a computer through a web browser like Google Chrome or Firefox or even Internet Explorer? If the answer is yes, that means that Gmail has a web version. It is a web app. Have you ever accessed Gmail from an app on your phone or tablet? If the answer is yes, then Gmail has a mobile app. And the answer is yes. Gmail is available through the web app as well as through a mobile app. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, Gmail does not have a desktop version. In other words, unless you are really good with computers and can kind of program a shortcut to Gmail, there's no icon on a desktop, or there's no way of just opening an app from your computer to go to Gmail. If you do know how to program a shortcut, what would happen is when you open Gmail, it would open up a web browser such as Google Chrome, and you would be accessing Gmail through the web. So that was a bit of background, hopefully interesting to you. I'm kind of a tech geek, so I really love learning about how things work. Of course, we all want to know what's best for me, and when it comes to apps, what will help me be more productive, or what will entertain me, what will help me have a lot of fun. When it comes to our education, what will help me learn and grow. But I also think that there's a lot of value in understanding how things work. So that's why I wanted to share a bit about the 3 different types of apps. And now I want to talk a little bit about where we get apps. Very quickly, because there are different types of apps, 3 to be specific, there are different places that we can go to access or download applications. We can access them through the internet or through the web. We can also access apps through the devices themselves. So to give a quick example, if we have any Android users out there, if you are an Android user and you want to access an app, you can go to the Google Play Store, or you can go to the Amazon App Store. If you are a user of an iPhone or an iPad or other iDevice, chances are you're getting your apps through the App Store. As I said, there are also desktop versions of apps. So if you're using a Mac, you can get apps through the Mac App Store. Very creative names they have here. That's sarcasm for those of you who didn't quite pick up on that. And if you're using a PC computer, you can access apps through the Windows Store. Hopefully by now, what you have learned are there are 3 types of apps: desktop apps, web apps, and my favorite, mobile apps. You may have heard some familiar places where you can get apps, and that there are a lot of different ways we can access them. I'm going to focus on one type of apps. I'm going to talk about mobile apps. And I happen to be, as I've said, a user of an iPhone with VoiceOver. I have no vision. So anytime I want to access information on the screen, I have to access it through listening. I have to access it with my ears. And I do that through VoiceOver. There are many apps out there that are fully compatible with VoiceOver. In other words, they work great. When I use VoiceOver, I'm able to hear everything on the screen. I'm able to tap where I want. I know where I am. I'm able to click on links. I'm able to type in information. Every feature is accessible to me. And then there are some apps that are a little bit accessible, not great, but I can kind of get by. And then there are the dreaded inaccessible apps. Have you ever come across an app that you were really excited about using, and then once downloaded or once you did your research, you discovered that it's just not accessible. That's kind of a bummer, but I'm an optimist. That means I'm someone who likes to think of things in a positive way. I like to be very hopeful, and I'm hopeful that even apps now that aren't accessible one day will be accessible in the future. So if you ever come across an app that's inaccessible with a screen reader or just isn't great in general for accessibility, chin up, because that can change. The cool thing about apps and devices is that technology is always moving so quickly, and there are laws that protect people with disabilities and help us to be able to have equal rights when it comes to accessing things like apps. So again, I'm hopeful that one day there will be equality, there will be access for everyone when it comes to apps, and that's a world that I want to live in. So today I'm going to talk about some apps that I find most useful, and maybe more importantly, apps that I think are a lot of fun. Before I go into that, I want to take a moment to turn the chat box on and hear from all of you. Do you have any questions about anything we've talked about so far? Or do you have general comments that you would like to say? And keep in mind, later, I will be asking you about some of your favorite apps, so hold those thoughts for now. This is a good time for you to just ask any questions and offer any comments or thoughts that you might have for me or anyone tuning in. And I'm glad to hear that it doesn't seem my cat has any questions or comments right now. He seems to have settled, which is a really good thing.
Keen said, nice
So
to see you again.
Oh, it's great to be here with you as well. Thanks for tuning in today. Michael says that they aren't a big fan of JAWS because it's always so stubborn. I know what you mean. Are there any apps that aren't voiceover accessible? Was that the question to the
Looks
moderator?
like it, yes. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's actually, are there any options?
Oh, it's reverse.
Yeah. Are there any options for apps that aren't voiceover accessible?
Are there any options for apps that aren't voiceover accessible? There are many apps that aren't voiceover accessible, but today we're going to focus more on the ones that are accessible, because I, possibly like many of you, do use a screen reader. And sometimes apps are released that aren't accessible, and as I said, updates get released and then they become accessible. Snapchat is one of the examples I'm thinking of that is not accessible with a screen reader. So as much as I would like to participate in Snapchat, it's just not something I do because it's picture-based and it's very visual. What are some of the other comments I may have missed from the moderators since I was not listening to JAWS as I was talking? Someone's
Sorry, I was
talking
on
about
mute.
I'm wanting to use WhatsApp.
People are mentioning a lot of specific apps, Kate, and I think you said you wanted to wait to talk about them. So we have one general question: is which social media app is most accessible?
Great question. I'm going to talk more about this later, but I believe that Facebook is extremely accessible, as is Twitter. So both of those are extremely accessible social media apps when using a screen reader. Somebody's asking about the Narrator app. And what I love so much is that the person who wrote Narrator did put that Narrator is an app, and that is true. Narrator is a screen reader on Windows-based computers, and especially recently, it's coming out with a lot of really wonderful features, making it a more reasonable option for us screen reader users. So Narrator on a computer would possibly be able to access web-based apps as well as those desktop apps that we mentioned. Okay, so once again, I was talking. I have a habit of doing this. I'll talk and stop listening to JAWS. So I want to hear from the moderators. Was there anything that I that our group might be interested in hearing out loud that I may have missed?
You are getting quite a few about apps, and I
Another
think
question.
it might be, yeah, go ahead. Charlotte.
Yeah, why don't you talk about what you want, Kate, and then at the end we can see if there were any specific apps that you haven't covered that people have
Sure.
questions about.
That sounds great. All right. So the first app that I want to talk about as we turn the chat feature off is Seeing AI. So once again, thank you all for your comments. The chat feature is off, so you won't be able to enter your comments until we turn it on in a little while. So I'm a big fan of an application called Seeing AI. And the AI part of that, you may already know, or you may have a guess, but AI in Seeing AI stands for artificial intelligence. And Seeing AI was developed by the company Microsoft. Their tagline is turning the visual world into an audible experience. How powerful is that? Play those words over again in your minds. Their tagline is turning the visual world into an audible experience. Now, being someone who's visually impaired, I think that's pretty cool, because when I experience the, in quotes, visual world, I'm not seeing it with my eyes. I'm accessing the visual world through my other senses. And the primary sense that I access that world is by listening through my ears. So if they're able to take a visual experience for someone with vision and turn it into an audible experience for someone without, I'm game. I'm in. Let's do it. So I wanted to be sure and talk to you all about Seeing AI today, because it is such an incredible opportunity to access information in ways that don't require vision. In just one app, Seeing AI, we can do so many things. I was hoping to be able to demonstrate for you today, but given the tech challenges in using multiple devices and screen readers, and the microphones weren't quite picking up the audio, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to demonstrate. So bear with me as I talk through some of these things, and I will turn on the chat feature at a later time so you can ask your questions, but I'll try and move kind of slowly through this because Seeing AI has so many features. Seeing AI has different channels. So the different channels on Seeing AI are really telling us what you're trying to do. So there is a channel called short text. And what one does to utilize the short text feature of Seeing AI is point the camera from a phone to text. So for instance, let's imagine that you get mail. Don't we all love getting a letter in the mail? I know I do. I love it even more if my letter comes in Braille, but sometimes I get print letters and I love those too. Well, unless they're bills. But if I get a letter from a friend, even if it's in print, I get a really great feeling. Like, can't wait to read what's inside. And you can use Seeing AI's short text feature to scan the text on the front of the envelope to hear who it's from. It works especially well if someone has used digital text or printed a label, because the short text feature does better reading digital text, like computer font, rather than handwriting. So what you can do is you can point the camera of your phone to, say, the front of that letter that you just received, and it will start reading aloud to you with the voiceover or whatever screen reader it is that you're using. Other areas where the short text feature is very helpful might be if you're in the kitchen and you want to distinguish or identify the differences between boxes that are in your cupboard, or canned goods that you have in your pantry, or even things that you have in your freezer or in your refrigerator that have print information. For those of us who are visually impaired on the line, I'm sure you can relate to this frustrating experience. Coming home from school or work and being so hungry. Do you ever get hangry? Angry, hungry, where you're just like, I am done with the world. I'm starving. I can't think about another thing. I can't say another word until I get food in my belly. So you go to your refrigerator, or you go to your freezer, or you go to your pantry, and you open them up, and you start feeling around, and there's stuff in there, thankfully, but you just don't know what it is. And you know that either you're gonna have to ask somebody for help, you're gonna have to experiment a little bit by just opening and using your other senses, such as smell and taste, to explore, or now you can use your technology, like Seeing AI, to use the camera on your phone to scan the front of a box and have it read, that's the Annie's mac and cheese, which, by the way, I love. If you've never had it, delish. But that's a really great example of a box that has pretty standard computer font on the front, and Seeing AI's short text channel would have no problem reading to you the type of mac and cheese. It also works great with other types of boxed goods. So things that come in boxes, like your pastas and rices and other things that you might prepare from the pantry, or things that come in boxes that you might find in your freezer, like if you have a frozen meal, and maybe you have a few different frozen meals in the freezer, and you really, really want the one that's gonna offer you the lasagna, but you have two others in there that are something else. You could use the short text feature on Seeing AI to have it read to you that this one is the Stouffer's lasagna, or this one is the Stouffer's enchiladas. One of the barriers, one of the difficult things with using the short text feature of Seeing AI is that sometimes the shape of a product that we want to scan, or the shape of whatever it is, a document, a letter, whatever it is that we're trying to scan to read short text, if the shape of it is rounded, or if it has sort of a glare to it, or is the type of material that's shiny, there are things that make the short text not as accurate. So it's just not going to read things as well. An example would be, consider a prescription bottle. If you go to your medicine cabinet and there are a few different bottles and you're just not able to quite see the words that are printed on them to know which is the Advil and which is the Tylenol and which is the Tums, and you are hoping to use an app like Seeing AI to read, it might have some trouble because of the shapes. The bottles are rounded, they are circular, so they're cylindric, I think, if I'm saying that word correctly. And that can pose challenges for how the camera is able to interpret text on such bottles. So in that case, I might use a different app, which I'll talk about in a moment. So that was the short text channel of Seeing AI. Again, super useful for doing some pretty awesome things, like when you get a letter, being able to read who it's from, opening the letter, and you can even scan the text with that. Sometimes accessing things in your kitchen, or if, for me, I love makeup. So when I get new makeup that comes in the mail, I'm able to use the short text feature to read the text on the packaging and know what's what. Now, like I said, Seeing AI offers so many different features and many different channels. So let's move on to the next. Let's say you just got that letter in the mail and you use the short text channel of Seeing AI to read who it's from. But now you open up the letter and it's a 8.5 by 11 piece of paper with tiny, tiny font on it. I know, right? We, as people with visual impairments, we just love that when the text is super small. Well, the great thing is optical character recognition, or OCR, is on our side. Many, many years ago, when a guy called Kurzweil invented the OCR capabilities and transferred it to assistive technology, people like us who are visually impaired really benefit. The channel called Documents through Seeing AI would be a great option for reading that letter that you just opened up. What it does is it provides audio guidance to capture a printed page and recognize the text as well as its formatting. So the short text version, the short text channel of Seeing AI is just in real time scanning text that's in front of the camera, and as it scans, it reads it out loud. With the documents feature of Seeing AI, you're gonna snap a photo of an entire document, and what's gonna happen is Seeing AI is going to use optical character recognition, or OCR, to scan that document and then say aloud the text that is on the page. This can be used for way more than just reading letters. Can you think of situations in your life where you have been provided with a print document or other material or resource that you needed access to in the moment, and you wanted to be able to access it yourself? Maybe it was a book that a friend wanted to lend you, or a book that your teacher decided to use in class. If we have any students who are preparing for college, professors, let me give you a little secret about professors. Sometimes they plan their classes last minute. And while an accommodation one may have is to get any handouts in advance electronically, there may be times when a professor at the very last minute decides they're going to hand out a print document to their class, and it may not be accessible to you. So you can use this document feature through Seeing AI to snap a photo, have the document scanned, and read aloud to you with your screen reader. I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty cool. Speaking of cool, I think the next one I'm about to talk about, the next channel on Seeing AI, might be even better. And this is talking about products. So again, let's think about all of the times in our lives when we're in our own homes or even at a store out in the community, when we come across different products that we want to buy or have already purchased. Most products come with a barcode on them. So think about when you're like at the grocery store and you get up to the cashier, and you may hear as they're scanning your items for you to pay, you may sometimes hear a little beep, and you may already know that beep is their computer scanning the barcode, identifying the product, and then coming up with its price so they can add all the amounts together and give you a final that you have to pay. Well, Seeing AI uses that same user experience with a barcode and gives people with vision impairments who are using the app more access to that information. Wherever we have our phone or tablet with Seeing AI, we can go to the the products channel, and we can aim our camera at a product, and we'll hear a beeping sound. And as the beeping gets faster, that's the app's way of alerting us that we're getting closer and closer to the barcode. Once the camera is able to view the barcode, you'll hear this sound that makes it very clear that it's been processed. And the best part, it'll tell you exactly what it is. So those of you who have listened in on other lessons that I've done, I think I've said this at least twice before. I am a Coca-Cola fanatic. I love this stuff. It's delicious, but sometimes I buy other things that come in similar packaging, like seltzer water. And it's just the worst experience to open up a can and you think you're gonna get that refreshing taste of Coca-Cola in your mouth, and all of a sudden you get plain seltzer water. No, thank you. No more of that, my friends, because we can use the product feature of Seeing AI to scan a barcode on a box, like a box of Coca-Cola or a box of seltzer water, to know what it is. So far, I've talked about 3 features of Seeing AI. I've talked about the short text feature, the documents feature, and the products feature. Thinking about my example of with the Coca-Cola versus the seltzer, I already said that you can use the products feature of Seeing AI to identify. But could you use either of the other 2 I mentioned to know the difference between a box of Coca-Cola and a box of seltzer water? I want you to think about that. Other than the products channel of Seeing AI, do you think that short text would be a good option? Or do you think that documents would be a good option? Think about that for a moment, and I'll give the answer in just a couple of seconds as you're thinking. If you believe that short text is a good option, you are correct. I think short text would be a great option for knowing the difference between a box of seltzer water and a box of Coca-Cola, because in real time, while you point your camera of your phone to the box, and then the print on the box would be read out loud. Could you use the documents feature to take a picture of the text on the box and hear it read out loud? You absolutely could. So you weren't wrong if you said that either. However, I would argue that the short text feature would just be a faster, more efficient way of doing it. Now, if you think I'm done with Seeing AI, I still have more to go. That's how awesome this app is. And I don't think I've mentioned yet, but it's completely free. So other than the short text channel, the documents channel, and the products channel, we can also do some pretty fun things with Seeing AI. To me, the features I've mentioned are pretty practical. Now let's talk about the fun things we can do. Seeing AI has a people channel. And I don't know about you, but I think it's just hilarious. What you do is you point the camera of your phone at a person, and your phone, because of Seeing AI, is actually going to scan the person's face and give you some information. The phone is going to guess, it's an educated guess, the person's age, gender, and emotions. Now, let me tell you what, this is a huge hit at parties. Whenever you're at your next party and you want a way of connecting with people, this is a great icebreaker for talking about your visual impairment, talking about how assistive technology helps you, and also just having a little bit of fun. So what you might consider doing is, while you're chatting with someone, maybe just kind of casually begin talking about assistive technology, or say, hey, you want to see something really cool? Take out that free Seeing AI app, put it on the people channel, ask the person if it's okay if you take their picture. It won't be saved on your phone, let them know. And if they agree that taking their picture is okay, snap the photo and your phone will guess how old the person is, their gender, and my favorite part, their emotions. My 10-year-old nephew loves doing this. He thinks it's so funny when he snaps a picture of his mom, and between us, it always thinks she's a lot older than she really is. Sometimes I take pictures of animals to just have fun with it and see if the app will be able to tell me that it's an animal. I'm not going to give you the answer. Try it, see what you get. I'm just briefly going to go through some of the other features because I have other apps that I want to talk about. But just so you know, Seeing AI also has channels for you to be able to determine if the light is on in a room where you are. Not only will it tell you that the light's on, but it'll actually communicate to you how bright that light is. And one day, if you're not already paying bills, that's really important to know. People come over, they turn your lights on, and even if you don't have any light perception and don't need the lights on, you may want to know whether they're on or off, because it'll cost you. You have to pay for those lights. You have to pay for electricity. So I like to go through my house and use the Seeing AI app to determine if the light is on and how bright it is. And it communicates that to you through a tone. So the lower the tone, the less light you have in the room, and the higher the tone, you guessed it, the more light you have. Very quickly, some of the other features, Seeing AI through the camera on your phone can also identify the currency of your bills. So it can tell you whether you're holding a $1 bill, a $5 bill, a 10, 20, and so on. It'll also be able to describe things in your scene. For instance, if you were to, now that we're all at home, if you were to go to an open window and snap a photo with Seeing AI while on the scene preview channel, your screen reader would likely read out to you some things about your scenic environment. If you were to take a picture of a street, it might tell you that it's seeing a street with cars passing by. Sometimes, to be honest, the scene preview gives you great information and a lot of it, and other times it doesn't give you very much detail at all. There's also color preview on the Seeing AI app, but to be honest, I don't think it works very well. I love clothes, I love colors, I like knowing what I'm wearing, I like knowing what colors things are, what from the comforter I use on my bed to the chair that I'm sitting in. I just like to know what colors things are. And I don't think that the color preview app on Seeing AI is the best option for identifying. It also has the capability of reading handwriting, but it's not great. People have sloppy handwriting. Some people have very neat handwriting, and there's a lot of places in the middle. So I just don't think that Seeing AI or other handwriting OCR apps have really quite gotten there to be able to read handwriting 100%. I'm going to move on to an app called Ira, but I want to take a moment to pause and see if you have any questions. If you have any questions related to Seeing AI or any of the other stuff that we've talked about, go ahead and enter it into your chat box that we're turning on now. And I will do my best to read some comments out loud. Someone says they know what Ira is.
One question, Kate, is what version of iOS must you have to use these?
That is a great question. And unfortunately, I don't have the answer, but if you go to the whatever device you're using, if you go to the App Store and you search for Seeing AI or the other apps we'll mention, it'll tell you what version requirements you must have. I want to say it's 13 something, but I don't really remember. I'm also seeing somebody ask, how do you switch to different channels within Seeing AI? And once the app is opened, if you are swiping with a screen reader, once you get to the area that says channel, swipe your finger up and down to change the channels, and it will read what channel it is out loud, and it'll be pretty obvious from there where you are.
Have you tried Blind Square?
I love Blind Square. I have tried it. Blind Square, for those of you who may not know, is a wonderful app that helps with orientation and mobility. It's based off of something called Foursquare, so it tracks your location. And for those of us who are visually impaired, it announces as we pass by businesses, companies, and other points of interest. We can even use it as a step-by-step, turn-by-turn GPS system that's fully accessible.
Another person writes, I have a Verizon phone. Do I need a smartphone to use Seeing AI?
You do need a smartphone to be able to use Seeing AI and many other apps. Great question.
You gave great ways to learn Seeing AI. Thank you. Do you have any favorite activities you've used outside or prefer it for outdoors?
Do I have any activities that I prefer with Seeing AI or outdoors? Did I get that right?
Yeah, do you ever use Seeing AI outdoors, I think is the question.
Oh, okay. Sometimes I'll use Seeing AI to snap pictures of my environment. That's that scene preview channel that I talked about. And I like hearing what's around me. I like knowing if there are trees or people walking by or cars in front of me. But I want to caution people, it's not going to give enough information to keep someone safe. We always have to rely on those, old trusty tools like our cane, our senses, our guide dogs, and our skills to really know what's in our environment. But the scene preview is a cool way of kind of extending past the reach of our cane or our guide dogs or our senses to know, just get a general overview of what visual things are in front of us. But other than that, I can't really think of ways that I would use Seeing AI outside. There are other apps that are pretty cool. Like I forget what it's called, but I'm sure if you just search in Google or the App Store, there are lots of apps that you can point your phone up to the sky and it will tell you, if it's nighttime, it'll tell you what galaxies and constellations that you're near, and or that you're pointing your camera towards, and lots of other fun things. I also use the weather app that just comes standard on my iPhone to get information about what's the temperature, what's the forecast for the coming week.
A few people have asked, what do you think of the Lazarillo? Lazarillo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Yeah, funny that you mentioned it. I just downloaded it to my phone, but I haven't used it enough to be able to give a review.
How much time do you think you spend using Seeing AI?
I would say I use Seeing AI at least a handful of times a week, and it's always for a very quick task. It's quick to open, and it's quick to either snap a photo or just have the camera view something and get the information I need. So from here, I'm going to now turn the chat feature off, and I'm going to pretty briefly talk about Aira, because it is one of my very favorite apps. That's AIRA. And for all of you students out there, it is completely free right now. And for anyone out there, the first 5 minutes of every call are free. Now, let me tell you more about what I mean. So Aira is your virtual visual pocket assistant. Virtual visual pocket assistant. Wow. It's like we're in the future when I talk about this stuff. It just astounds me. Even though I'm a user, I'm constantly just in awe of how far technology has come. So what Aira enables us to do is, again, through the camera of, say, a phone, you can connect to a real live person, an agent, your visual interpreter, who will look through the camera of your phone and give you whatever information you're seeking. So these agents are trained in providing visual assistance, and they are sworn to confidentiality. So if you were wanting information about a letter that you received in the mail, it's one of my favorite examples because it's so classic. You could connect to Aira, and an agent would come on and say, hi, they would say your name, because you'd have an account created, and then they would give you their name, and they say, how can I help you today? And you would ask for whatever information you're seeking. So you might say, I just got a letter in the mail, and I was hoping that you could tell me who it's from. And they would ask you to point the camera of your phone to the front of the letter, and they would read it for you. Other ways that this is super helpful, I find it especially useful for helping me to match my clothing, describe how I look if I'm getting ready for the day. Sometimes even if I'm cooking, I will ask, how does this look? Usually I can rely on my sense of smell and my skills to tell if, say, ground meat is done cooking, but sometimes I like to be extra sure and just connect to one of those visual interpreters through Aira and ask them, hey, do you see any pink left in this ground beef? Typically they say no, because I've been, I'm a pretty skilled cook, and I've been doing it for a while, but every now and then they do say, oh, you know what, actually there's a little bit of pink left on the wooden spoon you were using, so you might want to wash that off. Can you think of other ways that Aira would be useful to you? As you're thinking of things, we'll open up the chat box and I'll share with you one of my favorite stories. I've mentioned my nephew. His birthday is actually today on Cinco de Mayo. He turned 10 years old, and we're celebrating from home. And I'm very close with him. He's a dear child and just a wonderful boy, and very, very close. And I go to his baseball games sometimes. And before Aira, I would ask my sister to describe to me things like, if my nephew was up to bat, tell me if he's up to bat, and tell me how far he hits the ball, and tell me if he's running. But being his parent, my sister, his mom, was often wanting to coach him and be close to him and cheer him on. And she didn't want to be sitting next to me all the time telling me what's going on. So I figured out, wow, I could actually connect to a visual interpreter, Aira, and I could ask them to describe to me by using an earpiece in my ear and holding the camera of my phone up towards the field. So as my nephew is playing baseball, Little League, Aira could tell me just just when he's up to bat, how far and fast he's running, if he's catching a ball, And it just felt so good to not have to rely on someone in my immediate environment. I heard a question come through. Do you need glasses with Aira? You do not. In fact, they're discontinuing the use of Aira glasses, and they're moving only to a mobile option using the camera of a phone. What other questions? I just heard, what is the difference between Aira and Be My Eyes? Great question. Aira hires trained agents or visual interpreters. It is their job to provide the visual information, and they go through rigorous background checks and sign confidentiality agreements. So you can just feel a little bit more secure and safe with your information when you're connected to an Aira agent. Plus, as I said, they're trained. So they are skilled in describing things to people and kind of cutting to the chase, getting to the point of whatever it is that you're seeking. Whereas Be My Eyes is an app that is also for people with vision impairments, and you connect to sighted individuals who look through the camera of your phone and can describe things. However, with Be My Eyes, all of the people you're connecting to are volunteers. So it could just be any Sue, Amy, Joe, Beth who you connect to, and they might not know anything about what it's like to be visually impaired or how to describe things. So you have to be a little bit more careful, because it's just anyone can sign up to be a Be My Eyes volunteer. So you would never want to share private information. What other questions? Be My Eyes is free. Good question.
We have, I think, just about 1 more minute. Let's see. What was the app or device someone asked if you had tried that you had not tried yet? And that was Lazarillo, I think. And what is the cost of Aira with monthly fees?
That's changing all the time, but last I knew it was about $30 a month, but it's been going down in cost all the time. So with our last few seconds here of the call, I want to make sure that we hear from all of you. So what are some of the apps that you enjoy using most? And we'll read some of them out loud. If you've never heard of it, write it down and do some research to explore. So as those are coming in, we've talked about Seeing AI and Aira today. Talked about Blind
Have you ever
Square.
used Aira to locate an empty seat on a bus, train, or plane?
I absolutely have used Aira to do that, and it is fantastic. I've also used Aira to independently get through an entire airport. Many airports are site access locations for Aira, meaning you can access an unlimited amount of minutes for free when you connect to an Aira agent at a lot of airports. So no longer are the days where you're forced to ask for a SkyCap to assist you to your terminal and get on the plane. You can connect using your phone in Aira.
Have you used TapTapSee?
I have used TapTapSee, a great app for snapping pictures of things and getting them described to you. It's sort of an object recognition software, and it's pretty cool.
We've got a lot of things coming in, and we are
it's wonderful.
Time, but people love YouTube and Easy Reader and BitLife and Voice Dream Reader. We could go on for a very long time, Kate. There are lots of
well, I'm so glad you all are putting in apps that you love. We talked about social media earlier. Facebook, Twitter are super accessible ones. Keep typing in those chat boxes, and for those of us who can access the text in there, hopefully it'll give us each some things to research. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, I apologize for the in my opinion, hilarious distraction from my cat at the beginning. But thanks for regrouping and staying with us through that.
Cheryl, if you will tell us what's coming next, and then we'll see what we can answer after we've stopped.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kate. And I am keeping track of all of the things you're adding in the chat window. I'm generating my own list, and some of these I'm going to have to look up. So thanks for sharing. Tomorrow, please do join us. We have a really exciting lesson. It's an orientation and mobility lesson. It is about, oh goodness, what was it called? Getting out of, I kept thinking of these.
Escape rooms.
Escape rooms, thank you. Escape rooms for orientation and mobility. So I'm excited to see what that's all about, and I hope you will join us tomorrow. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Kate. We loved that.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye, everybody.